Welcome back to the Daily Stack. I'm here alongside Jody Flournoy, as well as, one guest and one new co-host. So we're very excited today. We got Halston and Kyle Knight in the house today to talk a little bit of Gen Z. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, AI that's been going around on Twitter. There was I'm blanking on the guy's name now, Matt something, but it's been going around talking about how Gen Z is going to be the permanent underclass. So we brought you two guys on today because you guys are buying Bitcoin. You guys are involved early, and hopefully you guys can break through. But it is pretty crazy, like reading through it, just seeing the speed and how fast AI is moving right now. And is Bitcoin going to be the only source of truth left? So welcome both you guys. I see you're in skiing out in Park City. That's right.
Park City. Yeah, no, thanks, Avi. Jody, good to see you, Halston. Great to see you yesterday and today again, doubling up.
I know.
Excited for our conversation today.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So we're gonna. Oh, go ahead, Juds.
I was gonna say, yeah, let's dive right into it. I was gonna show you for the audience, those that haven't read it, Matt Schumer. I assume I'm pronouncing that right. Something big is happening. Natalie Brunell shared this, and I think that's how it hit my timeline. And I actually had a friend that was, asking about career advice on should he get back into the legal field. And I'm like, look, like this stuff's moving really fast, and I think we are living in an echo chamber of a lot of AI. If you're on X, you're on Twitter a lot, Claudebot, OpenClaw, Moltbot, everything you're seeing is around this AI agents and automation. But this is a really good article to show why this is moving faster than anyone expected, and it's just going to exponentially move faster. So for the audience, if you have a chance, go read this. It's not that long. Something big is happening. It's about how AI pace is way faster than anyone expects, and what potential disruption that could be.
Yeah. Well, and we all said we shared it with someone. 40 million people have now seen that. So it's been viewed quite a bit. And thankfully, I think people are still asleep at the wheel. I had a conversation with a bunch of my friends today about this morning, talking about it. And it is something that, we're living it. Jody makes things every single day. I've been toying around myself. And looking back, even from, when it first started, AI, there was AI tools that we didn't even realize were AI, looking back, because I was in sales. And we'd have recordings. It would then translate all the recordings. It would, be able to find certain things for you. Looking back, that was AI, right? But the speed of acceleration, ChatGPT, I think, being that paramount moment where people are like, oh my God, it can like write in a whole essay for me. Now that seems like table stakes, right? And Jody's, prime, he can talk in depth about this, but we're making so many different tools now where the bots can continue themselves, right? And my friend Drew says, don't call them bots. They don't like that, so you gotta be careful and treat them nicely. But it is phenomenal. It's the biggest news story, obviously. And one thing that I've, have started to research or look into more, these bots can't open bank accounts. There was a big tweet about that. Maybe they one day can, but ultimately they're going to be using digital currency. So that's why we're wrapping AI now with Bitcoin. And I think it is pretty fascinating to see. And ultimately, in this world where people can just copy each other over and over again, that was the quote I sent you, Jody, that I thought was just, extremely powerful. It was the fact that everyone's going to be able to copy each other. Like one day we're not going to even be on the podcast. It's going to be, copies of us basically talking, right? However, since there's only 21 million Bitcoin, that can't be, copy pasted over and over again. So I think that was very powerful and thinking ahead of where Bitcoin can go. It is very interesting.
Name it S21. Treat them nicely. Show some respect.
I think I was just going to say, I think the paragraph or the section that stood out to me and it reminded me of Bitcoin was where, you said ChatGPT was that changing of the tides where people started to realize the power of AI. And I'm like, well, it also highlights the users of AI in 23 and 24 where they used it and they wrote essays and it was like, and they hold on to that as what the power of AI is. And I think that there's an analogy there to Bitcoin, right? And what the community has been over, the first 15 years or, 13 and to what it is today. A lot of people got a moment in time where they saw it at a peak, top of the bowl, and it goes down, and they just associate it with the FTX, the Mt. Gox, the past. And so I think hopefully we can take a lesson from how AI is going about adoption, and the community are teaching, people about the power of it today, and try to apply that to our community in Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, even with TradFi, I remember the people that graduated right before 2008 crash. Think about your first paycheck goes in the stock market, tanks, and then it's hard to get those people back. You're psychologically scarred.
Yeah.
So it is the people that have been in Bitcoin for a while that have, no one's really worried that's in Bitcoin that the price is going down right now. A lot of my friends are happy, because it's cheaper Bitcoin. But it is something to consider. You see generations just not invest now because the timing in which they were born. Right. And so
Yeah.
it's something to explore.
I had a friend to add on this just yesterday share with me they submitted to Y Combinator, an AI company that their goal is decentralizing and de-risking the execution risk associated with entrepreneurship, where you just need an idea and the AI does everything, and you're like a taste agent basically, but it's got taste. So I was going back and forth about what are we needed for, but it's mind-blowing that what's a year from now, what's 2 years, what's 3 years from now. It's kind of scary for me.
No, it's definitely terrifying.
Did you guys use it? Halston, I know you're closer to graduating, but did you, like in college, was everyone writing their essays, or did they? I know there was some defense that the colleges could use to say that this was written with ChatGPT, but how are people using it? I can't even imagine going to school with AI. It would be completely different.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely, so I graduated last year, and so it was starting to get pretty good. And I would say professors were getting really good at catching on to people using ChatGPT to write their essays. And they would put like a specific prompt in like a transparent font on the assignment so that they would know if you just copied the assignment and pasted it right into ChatGPT. I think now I still have friends that are still at SC, and they're telling me they have like this partnership. So you have to sign in to ChatGPT with like your usc.edu email, and it's like more of like a controlled environment. I mean, I'm like, what are the chances people are actually, adhering and doing that? But no, it was crazy. I think I can't imagine like being in college like right this second and having all these tools and just feeling like, I don't know. I just feel like the way that college goes and the way that the curriculum is just so inefficient. And I can't imagine being like given all these assignments that just feel so useless when there's literally like Claudebot and things that you could be building in that same time. So I don't know. For me, I'd be really frustrated and glad I'm not in college anymore.
I mean, and it's funny, like, I don't know if you guys use Chegg or, I'll never admit to using Chegg for my engineering homework, but like, at some point, if you don't have to do the problem, like, what are you learning? And, it's, at UCLA, I graduated last year, and it's like you had to opt out of AI in the classroom. The issue was they didn't teach students or professors on how to support students using AI effectively. Yeah. It was just use it. And it's like, that's where you can go a little, haywire.
I mean, just to pull some stats, I grabbed it. Already 20 million jobs have been replaced, and they're people have been let go and have not been replaced. January 2026 job cuts exceed even the 2009 Great Recession. 71% of Americans are concerned with AI is going to put too many people out of work. 55,000 U.S. job cuts attributed to AI in 2025 alone. Amazon axing 14,000 corporate positions. And it's not just like you think the manufacturers, robots are going to take some of that, but it's pretty much if you're not the CEO, C-suite, like high level management, you're at risk right now. And it was funny. I actually did this with my friends this morning. I took their snapshot of their company and LinkedIn and what they do and their specific role. And it would give them a score of like how at risk they are. And it was my friends that are like in finance, making connections that were the highest at risk. And it was, I have a friend that's a creator and he works with different animals and whatnot. His was the least at risk, right? And so it's coming back to almost like the plumbers are going to do very well, right? It's like the service, folks that are going to do very well. And everything that you guys learned and we learned, in college, you work hard, and we've seen it in a different stage, right? You work hard, you have that 9 to 5, someone can be at home with the kids. That life's far gone, right? That was our generation. And your generation now is walking in where it's like, hey, you were told if you go get an education, you get a 4-year degree, you walk out, get a great job. And you guys might be like the last generation here now that has jobs. Like it's going to be crazy how fast this is accelerating. I mean, it's mind blowing. Part of me thinks that it, what are people going to do? We've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah. I know. I keep seeing people trying to be super optimistic about it and saying that, we've seen this with the industrial revolution and people, there were more jobs created because of it. But I just I'm struggling to see that right now with how fast AI is growing. I'm not sure, maybe prompting and managing agents is a job, but I can't think of too many more jobs that are maybe outside of engineering that are actually going to come from this boom.
Yeah. I think you also have there's a transition period that's scary, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, our generation's around that time where, people that were farriers, farriers make horseshoes, for the horses, they quietly died off. And it's kind of sad because you're oh, what happened to all the farriers that were around in 1890s and, in the early 1900s. And during that time, if you had trained for that's your skill, then it's scary. But I think at the end of the article that he wrote, he's talking about positive things. It does, I think, help upward mobility if you are resourceful. I think if you look at the early 2000s, if you wanted to build an app, you're getting in on the iPhone wave, and had a business idea, it's $50,000, $100,000 to really put together a enterprise grade app that a million people could use. But now it's never been easier. And I think, access to education, learning through things. I think that's great overall, but it's going to take a little transition time. And I'm curious to see how people react negatively to AI and what you can do about it. Because, if you really push on legislation and you have populist movement that's going to start, writing legislation against AI, somebody else somewhere is going to pop up and try to do that. And we've always said that China would continue to push AI innovation. So in the US, we don't want to limit that, but it's gonna I think permeate anyways. If China comes up with the next model, it's gonna make to the US because there's so much money to be made. So any way you try to tamp out AI because of these fears, it's just gonna be ugly on how it plays out.
I think it'll be really curious. I sit with the question of how many of us are meant or fit for or want to be entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's an assumption that with AI adoption, many of us take that path, and you're almost forced into a role of agency and creation. And it's, I just wonder what the split of, our society is and how many of us are really going to adopt that feature.
Well, and I always think too, is how many, if everyone's a creator, who's watching,
Who's consuming. Yeah.
Yeah. It is fascinating. And I think, I mean, things that you physically have to do with your hands is going to be all that's left. And maybe we're being sensationalist, but you read that and you just see how fast this has moved in the last 6 months, a year. You were talking about lawyers, Jody, these huge law firms with 1,000 people. In that article, they were talking about they talk with the head of a law firm, and he's starting to use it all the time. And he's like, wait a second, now it feels like I have 10 analysts working for me. That's 10 jobs gone, right? And you go through any industry now, especially some of the simple stuff. It's gonna be very interesting. Kind of goes back to UBI at some point. I think we'll have to have some sort of a UBI.
Yeah.
A question: do you think, and before just the UBI, I hadn't thought about this, but will law firms be able to charge this same prices, or are we, everything that you get deflationary, it just becomes cheaper because everybody can provide the service?
Yeah, I mean, it really
it's got to be cheaper.
Yeah, I compared it to airline pilots to my friend. I was like, airline pilots used to be this, it is still is a respected profession, but it's much harder than it used to be. You know, you look at the people like Pan Am, you know, like wearing these cool like costumes, and they're getting in, and a pilot used to be like a doctor, like someone that's very seasoned, coming out of like World War II as a fighter pilot. And then I think there's just a lot of these people coming to college with, you know, private pilot license, commercial pilot license. And then you have airlines that are now public companies that are driving, you know, wanting to drive up stock prices. So they cut costs. So then like pilots unionize, and it becomes like, you know, still a respected profession. And I think it's skilled. My dad's a pilot, not as his profession, but just a recreational pilot. But he even sees a lot of his friends and friends that I've met that like, oh, you're flying for FedEx, you're flying through a storm, you're doing that for a decade, you're not getting paid hardly anything. You're flying these like really bad routes for a long time. And then now it's like you reach 20-year seniority, then you're finally reaching, you know, where you're 45, 50, where you're actually making like a decent living. But there's plenty of pilots out there in the same way that like lawyers, in the same way, there's going to be plenty of lawyers out there because they, you know, have all the analyst work handled, and then the associate work's handled, and then, you know, the partners are still valuable. They can do the last mile work, but everything ahead of that means that you just need to hire less people and there'll be a smaller firm. So
Yeah.
I think about planes. It's half of it is now, you know, they you know better than I do, but from what I've heard, you fly, you know, you're obviously when you're on the runway, that takes focus from and then when you're landing, but like in flight, isn't that all automated now at this point? And that's been going on for a while. You know, that's nothing new.
But yeah, that's what they want, right? Like insurance companies pay for the system every day. You know?
Yeah. There was the Tesla thing we were talking about the other day. There was a big insurance company that ran through and saw the numbers, and they're like, this is much safer than humans driving, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting. There is depopulation, which is happening too at the same time, and I don't know if this accelerates that. Ultimately, we see a lot. I mean, you guys tell us, like my generation, even some people have already started saying they don't want kids, right? And I think the younger generations, as you go down, they don't, you know, feel the need. A lot of people are thinking, you know, I don't want to bring a kid into this crazy world. But you guys tell me, like amongst your friends, maybe it's too early, but are people having those conversations?
Yeah, my friend group's definitely having those conversations. And, you know, I even just tweeted about this the other day, like our chances at like building a family and like affording a future are so like thin. And so a lot of the people I went to college with, like, just have decided they're probably not going to have any kids. And that was even before we saw all of this crazy fast AI stuff come out, like in the last 6 months. This was like a year, 2 years ago, already people having these conversations just with how things are with student debt and the housing affordability crisis and employment's like, it's so crazy. Like entry-level jobs are not paying very well. And they're also wanting you to have like 3-4 years of experience. And it's just not entry level. Right. And so it's like, you're struggling to find a job post-college, and you find one, you're like working crazy hours and like not making enough. It's like, yeah, no wonder, you know, our generation is not incentivized to, or encouraged to have kids. So yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the talk I'm hearing in my circle.
I don't know if this is a good transition into Bitcoin, but I don't know if you really introduced yourself on the last show, but like, how did you, with all these thoughts going through your guys' head, was this kind of driving towards a path towards seeing some light within Bitcoin, that there is 21 million only, it can't be copied, they can't, you know, create something new overnight. It has that network effect, which I think is, you know, I asked this question, I was like, why doesn't someone just recreate Bitcoin? But the reality is it has the network effect already, and that's hard to replicate and hard to, you know, go back in time and create that. So curious, like if some of this drove you down that path of seeking more truth and what is money, asking that question.
Yeah, for sure. For me, at least, I was definitely feeling the pain of the financial system during college. And so when I started reading about money and broken money, like both the book, but also just like paying attention to the economy, I realized like, yeah, every single thing that I'm experiencing right now, and me not feeling like I can ever afford to have kids, and me feeling like I'm never going to be able to buy a house rather, this is all a downstream negative effect of the money. And so that's kind of what led me to become radicalized and just so passionate about Bitcoin. Yeah, you know, like you said, because of its scarcity and ability to fix a lot of things. I don't think Bitcoin is going to solve every problem in the world, but definitely can fix a lot.
Yeah, adding that, I think growing up, we at just our generation, and I wonder if you guys had a different perspective on like how the internet felt, of like, was it efficient for you guys and you felt like the tools that were available, the platforms were like great? And, you know, for me, it was observing the systems around me. It was like, there's always room for improvement. Like eBay could be better. You know, the experience of just how we're engaging as a society could be better. And then when you find Bitcoin, you're like, oh, this is like a great system, you know. And the 21 million hard cap for me and my friends, and just going to the last question, was like, Bitcoiner friends are talking about having kids, others not as much. Just so happens I have more friends that are Bitcoiners than not. And so, you know, you wind up with a crowd that's looking forward to bringing kids into the world. But I certainly understand why you wouldn't want to.
I mean, even like, Facebook was my senior year of high school. And then Instagram came, and what that does to the generations as well, you know, you're only seeing people's happiest times, right? And so people are factoring in like depression. They're thinking that they're behind and their friends are all crushing it, but they go on one vacation a year. They show that on, you know, Instagram, and then everyone's jealous. And it does create this, you know, if someone is not going on those vacations and can't afford it, you feel like you're falling further and further behind. And so, you know, you see these young influencers, there's a handful of them that are making a lot of money. The reality is most of them are not. And so that's my concern, is if everyone thinks they're going to go out and, you know, do this full time, always, to my point earlier, it's like, if everyone's doing that, there's no listeners then at the end of the day, right? Everyone's creating it for themselves. So,
I mean, I want to add, go ahead, Jody.
I was going to say Coinbase Super Bowl commercial. I thought that, like, you know, kind of tying into people's reception of it and how like just the vibes are out with the normies that aren't, you know, hardcore Bitcoiners. It's, you know, people are singing along, and this is something that Marty Bent, you put out in his newsletter the other day, is like, you have this great thing. I think Backstreet Boys, people see like karaoke style words come up the screen, and then boom, Coinbase surprises everyone. And you're like, oh, and people felt rugged. They were booing the screen. There's like, I saw videos of people, you know, at a bar, everyone's booing because people have gotten rugged. And like you guys both mentioned on, you know, finding things that are like long-term value, you know, delayed gratification, you know, planning out your life and not looking for get rich quick schemes. Now crypto and Bitcoin has tied into that so much for the average person. Is seen as this get rich quick scheme. It really takes a lot of education to like flip the mindset, see why it's different, see why everyone, you know, pretty much that can control their own money printer with their own token gets corrupted, even though they come in with the best intentions. And that Bitcoin, you know, obviously is fixed and doesn't have that. Did you guys, you know, tying both those conversations together, did you guys have that same feeling? Like, how'd you feel about if you watched the Super Bowl, if you saw that commercial?
Go ahead, Alison.
Yeah, I mean, I personally did not watch the Super Bowl. I saw the commercial, but yeah, I think Coinbase I'm not a huge fan. I think, you know, I'm a marketer, so part of me is like, this is genius, because at the end of the day, if people are talking about it, that's the main goal, and that's how you measure return for something like a one-time ad for the Super Bowl. So I gotta give respect where respect is due. In terms of, you know, the booing, it's like, yeah, totally get it, and I'm with them on that. You know, I work for Bitcoin Well, a non-custodial platform, so we never even hold your Bitcoin. So there's never a chance that you know, you'll get your coins taken or any rehypothecation or anything like that. But yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Kyle. I know you're a big football guy.
You know, I sang this song to sorority houses in college, and so I was like watching that, brought back funny memories. But I thought, I mean, I preferred their NBA Finals commercials, which were about the housing, you know, crisis.
Yeah.
I thought those were more in touch, or I didn't totally understand the Backstreet Boys, you know, references here, but I don't also understand entirely like the booing aspect, where did Coinbase, you know, lose anybody's funds? Did I miss this?
No, I think it's
just
I
in
think
general.
it's sentiment with like
the market.
Bitcoin at 65, altcoins like low, like just wrecked across the board, and people saw how value extractive it was. It was people launching with these big ideas and promises, next wave of the internet, Web3, people own, get paid for ads and instead of these ad platforms, Web2 and Facebook and Google and all of that. But then it ends up being that like, instead of, people bought into the hype and there was so much promise, there was some tech, but tech didn't really pan out totally. But then there's just so much value extraction, VCs raising a bunch of money and then dumping once they had unlocks. And that's not something people grow up and don't understand what like unlocks are and like vested tokens. Like, for the average retail investor, it makes sense why like they're mad, because they're like, I didn't realize that every early investor to these projects wasn't in it for the mission. They were going to dump as soon as they had the liquidity of a public market, which is, the ICOs or token generation events, that you've had. So I think that's why generally the consensus, at least on the timeline, is why there was so much negative sentiment towards Coinbase, is because they've been, a shitcoin casino.
And I go ahead.
I was going to play it. I have it up
on
YouTube. For those that haven't seen it, let's just
watch it.
A quick on. Yeah, there we go. You guys able to hear it?
Mm-hmm. That's even worse than I remembered it. Yeah.
And like the timing of it is horrible, right? It's like if we were at 150 or something and we're back again, it's like, all right, that's cool. But we're down 50% and people are probably just like so out of touch, right? They're not reading the room. Yeah. And it looks like they probably made that the night before. It looked like like I could make something better. Obviously that was their intention, to kind of look like a VHS, back in the day, but it truly didn't make any sense now looking at it, unless I'm missing something.
You do make a good point that it could have been back to the bull market. They could have saved that commercial.
Right. Yeah.
I think the energy's there, but it gets into I think talking to Bitcoiners, and I wonder if you guys align, like it's kind of, our focus is on getting peace of mind, right? And Bitcoin provides that. And, having your financial future secure is something that you can feel comfortable with. And when you talk about, these casinos and Coinbase, how much of, responsibility they have on the educational awareness side, right? To Jody's point of not, people not growing up knowing what vesting is and unlocks and the sort, like at what point does Coinbase need to provide, stronger onboarding or exchanges to make sure that, market participants really know what is at risk?
Mm-hmm. This is a good point someone made. Michael Abbott, 21 million cap will probably be more like 14 to 15 million as time goes on. People die without leaving their information or access to Bitcoin. People sending Bitcoin to non-Bitcoin wallets, tie up court battles, etc. That is a good point. And now we're cheering for quantum, to go find it again. So that is an interesting, because right now there's only like 19 actually in circulation, right? Satoshi's got 1 million, and then there's been like about 1 million lost. That is a really good point that probably has not brought up a lot.
Yeah. So, all right, Jose, I'll let you go, but I was gonna also bring it back to you guys, Bitcoin Culture Hub. What have you guys been cooking up? You've been hitting a ton of conferences, and really the driving forces behind it. I know that cultural like Trojan horse, or culture as a Trojan horse, has been a big driving force, big strategy for both of you guys. So want to make sure we cover that.
Yeah, no, thanks for providing the opportunity to share a little bit. And Halston's been great support. We aligned because we actually met from Ella Huff introducing us because we were building something really similar and similar ethos. And when I tell the story, because it's hilarious for us, like we showed each other the lovable MVPs we had built, and they were like identical, same color scheme, same everything. And it was like, this is weird. All right.
Like the branding too. Which we ended up, like, neither one of us ended up using it, but such fun.
But yeah, the Culture Hub, you know, I grew up wanting to be a kindergarten teacher, you know, with a focus on helping people find fulfillment in life. And I think Bitcoin is a tool for that. And right now, the ecosystem is suffering, you know, from a really slow adoption rate. You know, 2021, it felt like the culture was there. I loved the community. And you felt like adoption could really happen pretty quickly. And then it's just kind of plateaued. And I think one of the biggest issues is there's just not a lot of platforms that exist to support Bitcoiners globally to grow. And, you know, I want to solve the problem statement that, like, I love sharing Bitcoin with people, but I have nowhere to send them. That's like a safe, accessible, welcoming home that can be curated to who they are as an individual, whether you're a 65-year-old thinking and needing stretch, or you're a 16-year-old wondering, you know, how can I get into development in Bitcoin? And so the first product we're launching, and it's live at bitcoinculturehub.com, is kind of think a LinkedIn Fiverr for Bitcoin around the world. So we're onboarding student talent, working with organizations like Summer Bitcoin and B Trust to support the talent that they educate, to help them get work, and to support organizations, whether it be, it's definitely UI, work in progress, but nevertheless, you can, you know, create an organization. So 21 Rates can create an organization and post opportunities for gig-based work, part-time. You know, the issue with hiring in Bitcoin is we go through these market cycles, and it's really tough to hire full-time positions and also source that talent and find that talent. And so our goal over the next 2 months is really to make this an end-to-end. You'll be able to list job opportunities or gig-based work and recruit Bitcoin talent from around the world. So that's the first platform. We'll have a few others that we're cooking up to ship in the first half of this year. But we're excited about this. And then we're also supporting, I mean, in general, I like supporting Bitcoin organizations. So we're supporting the Midwest Bitcoin Summit, which is they're having their inaugural event in September of this year.
Where's that?
That's going to be in Columbus, actually. And so
that's my Midwest.
That's I am really excited for the Midwest to have representation, you know, in a bigger scale Bitcoin conference type format. So we'll have a big, you know, booth there with the student network and the sort. So it's been a lot of fun working on the media side as well. We've got a little bit of work there, and working with Halston on trying to find ways to support Gen Z content creators that, you know, want to, you know, share their voice with a larger audience and hopefully monetize their work. But a lot of things cooking.
I got a question. So with Bitcoin at 60, is it 66, 65 right now? How are those conversations going? You know, are the younger generation your age, are they, you know, they're so like 5-minute windows, right? Even myself, it's like 10 minutes later, there's something else, right? And so are people losing, you know, a little bit of the excitement around Bitcoin? I know most of your friends are Bitcoiners, so maybe you're in, you know, we're all in this bubble, right? And we go talk to our normie friends, and you still realize how early we are. Now, and this is for both of you guys, I guess, but like, how are those conversations going? Is it you know, it's not 150 right now, it's not 200,000 where everyone's talking about it. AI, as we were just talking about, is taking the news cycle. So what have you guys done in order to, like, you know, bring that back, you know?
Yeah. In my experience, I mean, existing Bitcoiners are pretty comfortable with their long-term thesis, at least the ones that are in my circle, right? But talking to no coiners or new individuals, what I'm finding to be the case is they're actually familiar with the volatility, and it's not something that becomes a point of concern. I mean, they acknowledge it, it's down, why, but it's down and I'm out, right? So I think just the time in the market, at least observing the market, is helping people's comfort with, the volatility.
Yeah, I'm seeing kind of the same thing. A lot of my friends are Bitcoiners, and I'm friends with a lot of people in this space. But outside of this space, I'd say a lot of people that are my age buying Bitcoin, they're like upset that it's down. But like Kyle said, they're not dipping. They're not leaving. They're not selling. For the people that are the crypto bros, the traders, they're like, I've seen tons of people online say that they're done with this asset and moving on to the next thing. But this is where I bring in low time preference and why Bitcoin is so much better than any of these other altcoins, and why they should be holding. So I think it's a perfect marketing opportunity, education opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and Bitcoin has no CMO. There's no C-suite, right?
Right.
So it's up. That's the cool part about it, is it's up to us to go out and educate people in the space.
Yeah, I think with the time preference piece, it's good to educate people on that, because one topic I don't think we should dive into too much is like AI bots, training, Claude bots. Like I'm setting up now. We just did our first trade with our own Claude bot, Claudius. Shout out. I know you can't hear us because you're a bot, but last night, bet no on a parlay, on like a multi-leg parlay. It's not something I would ever take. I don't watch the NBA unless it's like the finals. And he makes a market for like no on this like multi-leg parlay, hoping that like fishing for someone like Avi that's like, oh, I think this parlay is going to hit, and it's like low probability. But the thing is going to be is if you have a low time preference and you're trying to get rich quick and you want 100x leverage, 40x leverage, like you're going to get shaken out. Like you're going to get liquidated. Even if you're just trading Bitcoin, you're going to get liquidated. Like your trading is going to be bots. It's going to be all bots. Like nobody that's like a human trader is going to be able to win, I think, for the most part, if you have a short time horizon. It just moves way too fast. Like you have like a bot that's, never sleeps 24/7 that's trading against you. And you think you're going to say, oh, Bitcoin's, shorting. I'm going to short them by like, it's going to go down 2K tomorrow, or it's going to go up 5K in the next month because I think strategic reserve's finally coming through. No, like it's pretty much priced in. There's already bots that know the risks and the models, and they've done it a million times in iterations. It's priced in. So getting that through your head, people not thinking they're special and can outplay those bots, I think is going to take some time, but it's definitely where education has to come in, where it's like, look, don't, even more so than the past, don't try to be a hero trader. Just have a long, a high time preference, think long term, and just allocate.
Yeah.
On the low time preference part, and this was something that I felt, personally that's impacted me, where Bitcoiners are like, all in, right? You go all in. And it's exciting to be all in on Bitcoin. But I tell people, I'm like, you treat it like a venture baby, right? Venture company, 7 years, right? Give it 7 years, let it grow, and you're going to be just fine. The issue is that you talk about putting an asset and holding it for 7 years and then going all in, right? And those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand if you're not, ready and prepared for the dips, right? And for the desire to spend and take vacations and, live life in the meantime, right? And so I think, I definitely have personally experienced, you go all in and then it dips and you're like, what am I doing? Like, I don't have the money to live because it's all in Bitcoin, and you could take out loans, but then you're, did you really want to get into leverage? And so I think that's another part of how we communicate, low time preference and all in, is all in's just a tough. Yeah. Go ahead, Jody.
No.
I was going to pull this up because everyone's familiar with Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. But what people don't think about is all the drawdowns they've had. Oh, I clicked the wrong one. Hold on. This one was helpful, but let me do. Sorry. This is interesting. So if you're looking at a short time horizon, this looks like a horrible stock, right? And you look over the time, and there's several examples of this, but good things do take time, right? And especially something completely new like Bitcoin. This has happened to some of the biggest stocks in the world right now. And so I don't think Bitcoin's alone, in this. Bitcoin gives you a 4-year window where there's cycle, and many thought the cycle was dead, including myself. But it feels like maybe we're now in this bear market, and it will pop back. I have no concerns. I'm looking at this as buying cheaper Bitcoin. Something I do is just I buy a certain amount of money every single week, don't even look at it. And then same for my kid. So I only put $50 a week, but over time that's going to grow. And I have a bet with my father-in-law that my versus the 529, that Bitcoin will be higher, at the end. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But I think if you're just dollar cost averaging, that's something I do. That way you're not even thinking about it. And then huge dips, that's where you can, start to put a little bit more in.
Yeah. I'm all for the DCAing. I think you just need to remove the emotion. It's so much easier. And just smash buy if you can during those dips, but I'm all for DCA.
We just need more fiat to put in. I think that is a big thing for a lot of folks. You're on mute, Jodes.
I should know better than that. All right, Kyle, art and collectibles. Tell us about what you focus on. This is a little bit different. We talk about price, talk about markets all the time. It's great, but let's get something a little bit like a little different take. I think people want to hear something, different than just price talk. Tell us about the culture.
Oh man. I feel like I represent, a little bit of a Medici style cultural steward. I love Bitcoin art. I love the artists. I love the space. And in the meantime, you can pull up Scarcity. Scarce.city is having their bazaar right now. And so we could show the audience a little bit of the art that is up. But, on the cultural and collectible side, there's so many, I say there's the finance side of Bitcoin, the money side, there's the tech side, and then there's like the culture community side. And I've always lived on the culture community side. And at Scarcity, where I started my career in Bitcoin, I was an intern, in December of 2021, I became their head of business operations, and they are a Bitcoin collectibles auction house and marketplace. But, it's Bitcoiners are creative and they're mimetic and they're fun. And, I'm not a big fine art person, but I understand the opportunity, and I don't buy this art as a long-term hold. I'm not recommending anybody does it. I buy it because I love the art. But I think our Bitcoin community in general has a lot of storytelling to do. And this is a way that Bitcoiners pursue that. And because we're global, there's so many different mediums and styles. So right now, one of the things that we'll be working on is supporting, I was actually just on the phone with the CEO founder of this site this morning, but working on supporting this community, the collectible space, and just the ability for people to be in front of Bitcoin culture and collectibles. But if you click on the bazaar, I don't know, and you scroll, there's some fun pieces. But
end of the drop.
Yeah, end of the drop. I like the come on, do something is actually hilarious.
Yeah.
Somebody did and you can like wind it up and it's the stick poking the Bitcoin symbol. But you bid in Bitcoin. And,
that's in range. Let's get it.
Should we do a giveaway with this?
Yeah.
It's
all right.
I'll tell you.
Wallet, I'll buy it for the audience, but it's got to be for the first person that reposts this. And I need to figure out a way to ship this safely.
You're gonna have to outbid me for it because I'm definitely going after this.
It's gonna go live. Yeah, retweet it. If you retweet this stream, one of us will buy that.
Or the audience might buy it. So I'm not. Yeah, Kyle, I'm not gonna front run on this.
No, it's okay.
I agree that
it's very funny.
Is there a buy now button like with eBay?
Not on these. These are auctions only. And so, that's one of the first things that I wanted to build was supporting artists having storefronts, right? And they all maybe have individually have their own website, but it's hard to find them, and it's hard to learn about the story that they're trying to tell and the culture that they're trying to be a part of if they can't publish their artwork somewhere. So that's one of the first things that we'll get out in this year is allowing creators kind of Etsy style to list their artwork or whatever they've created for the Bitcoin community for sale. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a side of Bitcoin people don't really get to see or talk about. So thanks for.
We spoke with Tad Smith a few times. I don't know if you're familiar
Yep.
with that. Former CEO of Sotheby's, one of the oldest institutions, and he loves art. And that's what he was saying to us too. He's like, people can look at it as an investment, but really he's like, I just buy stuff that I love, and that's what art should be versus a lot of these NFTs. I think back to my brother who bought like a $40,000 mutant ape, and I was looking at him like he was crazy. And then he told me he sold it for $60,000, but those days are over. All right. I feel like NFTs, it's going to be tough to make somewhat of a comeback, but this is an interesting angle. Do you think NFTs will make a comeback? Because I thought they had some. When I went to NFT New York, I walked up to pay for a beer and a hamburger or whatever, and they're like, "No, it's free." And I was like, "Oh," and it's because I had like a Bored Ape. And so from then on, I was like, "Okay, this is where it's cool. If you can be in like a community and you get into like concerts and events." I haven't seen that take off as much as I thought it would, but.
And I'll just wrap it like this. It's a supply demand thing, right? There was so much supply provided in the NFT space and not enough new collectors. That's why you see the market dynamics take place. So I love Pepe's. I'll buy, Pepe stuff.
But, true.
Other NFTs, they can do what they want. And I wish them the best, but their future's not for me to decide. Yeah,
that fella. That was they actually had a really cool in Brooklyn. They had a great little event with like, it felt like a full like concert that you'd go to in Vegas. So it was a fun time. But
no, this has been great. I talk about this all day. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on. I think it's a lot of fun, and obviously things change, and we also want perspectives on like, hey, every week we have new stuff. Every month, things are changing. We don't have a Super Bowl every week, but it is, people want a sense, especially when they're distributed and they live not in a big city. They want to know, oh, how is the community reacting to this? And like, I want to like validate that I like the direction that like either treasury companies growing or another aspect of Bitcoin where they're not sure what to think. So I think looking at it from a cultural lens is huge. I know you guys got to hop. So Kyle, really appreciate you jumping on. Follow Bitcoin Culture Hub. Halston, as always, is going to start joining us Wednesdays every week at 12:30 Eastern. So we really appreciate having your voice on here.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you both. Enjoy the rest of your guys' show. And Avi, I hope to see you.
Yeah. I was hoping you were in New York.
I know.
Gonna be at the Bitcoin Investor Week. I'm gonna pop by, so I'm okay with my OPSEC being out there, But we'll connect in New York next time you're here, and this has been a good time.
Great. All right.
It's been great, guys.
We'll talk soon.
See you guys.
See ya.